guys, it's Kylie. So we're gonna make sauerkraut. So this is not one with a vinegar base. This is actually fermented sauerkraut. I super love Polish recipes. A lot of those call for kraut. German recipes, some different ones using the kraut base to it. And I've found that the recipes seem much more authentic when you use the fermented kraut instead. You can buy it at the store, but you can also make it at home. So we're going to talk about that for just a minute. This is a small cabbage, about 2 pounds. So we're going to chop that up. Really, I've done nothing to it except take off the outer leaves and make sure that it's good and clean. So you want to make sure that you've got a jar to go in. I use only glass jars for this. So I've got a little glass container here that I'm going to put it in this time. We're going to use a couple of ingredients. Now, salt is important, so you're going to salt this as you go. This is sea salt. Do not use iodized salt for this. Make sure, because that's going to kill some of your fermentation and bacteria that go in there to make this. So you want to make sure that you get some sea salt. This actually doesn't call for a whole lot of salt, and you don't add water to this one like when we did the brined pickles. So it's going to be the juices of the cabbage itself that actually makes its juices that it sits in. So it's called dry brining. So we're going to chop this up in really small pieces, and then we're going to salt as we go. For this 2 pound cabbage, about a teaspoon of salt to a tablespoon. You just don't want to go too salty because you just can't fix that. You can always salt it when you're cooking or doing it later. So we're going to make sure that we do our salt. So it's going to be pretty close to just under a tablespoon. Just make sure you're not overdoing it. It depends on the size of your cabbage. Just be careful. For ours today, I'm going to add caraway seeds to it as well. You can do different seasonings, all kinds of things. You can get creative. You can start adding dried cranberries and different kinds of things to really amp it up. But we're going to start with just some caraway. So you want to make sure that you chop your cabbage small, because being able to get the juices to release from the vegetable is where all the liquid is coming from. So you want to make sure you have as much surface area exposed as possible. So just a small example here. So I'm going to chop that into small groups. Then I'm going to do it into a nice dice. You can already see that the cabbage is getting a little juicy for me here. Okay. So then we're going to go ahead and salt it just a little bit. So again, you just want to kind of make sure that you're keeping an eye on how much you're adding. And you do want to season as you go. Again, it's not going to have a whole lot of liquid added to it to have everything just really moving around at first. So you want to make sure that you're doing it that way. The next step that you want to do is you want to take something heavy and break up your vegetables just a little bit. So I do have a rolling pin. Yes, that crazy girl is going to roll the cabbage. But you want to start breaking the surface to it so you can get some more of that liquid to release. So back and forth, roll over it. You can take a little hammer instead if you want to, or a mallet, and chop them up. Then you really start getting some of that vegetable matter to break down. I don't know if you can tell there, it's already breaking up some in its coloration. So see how it's flattened, it's starting to really get that juice out there so that it starts coming out. So we're just going to, as we go, add it to the jar. I can come back to it in a few minutes, but you want to add each batch of that. The next thing we're going to focus on after we get that filled up in here, because again, that's going to take a few minutes. I'm not going to make you watch a whole video of me chopping up cabbage. So you put it in. You want to make sure that there's no air surface that's exposed, so you want to get all those air bubbles out. So you're going to take something, it doesn't matter what it is. As you can tell, I just took a plastic lid of something else, and I cut it to the size of my jar. So I'm going to put it in here to the top of my kraut. I'm going to keep pushing that down to get those air pockets out, because you don't want pockets of air in there. You want all those juices to start absorbing into the kraut, and we'll show a picture of it in a few minutes. So you want to make sure you get that air pockets down. Another thing I'm going to do, is weight it down. You can use either a ceramic item or a glass piece. This actually goes in mason jars, but to help weight it down just a little bit so that that plastic piece doesn't really just come up from there. So we're going to hold our air down. For this, you can screw a lid onto it whenever you get done. Mine's just one that sits on top, so I'm going to put a coffee filter over the top just to really kind of help seal that, because this isn't really a sealed jar. So that I can make sure we keep everything out of there. So a little coffee filter. If you do choose to screw a lid on, it will build up air in there, so you need to make sure that you release it every day, at least for the first 3 days. I just go in each day, give it a little open, give it a little close, put it aside. So how you like your kraut is really how long you ferment, and it also depends on the temperature of where it's sitting. So the warmer it is, the faster it's going to ferment. The colder it is, the longer it'll take. Your vegetables get softer over time, so you want to make sure that you're not getting to a consistency that you don't like. I personally still like it a little crunchy, so I'm going to try mine in about 7 days, probably 14 at the outside edge of it, but you can leave it for much longer than that. Another common thing that you'll have, so some people don't like this when they look at fermentation and try to do these processes, sometimes it will mold on top. You just take that off, get a spoon or something, because it can break up. You want to make sure you get as much of it out as you can, so you do scoop that out. Any vegetables that are discolored on the top, you'll take them away and throw them out. But the product itself, it's not going to be all mixed in. It's going to be fine overall. So sometimes you get some weird stuff with fermentation. Just make sure that it's something you trust. If you see some crazy, disgusting, really black mold or something, then maybe something's gone awry. But in general, a little bit of mold isn't going to hurt anything on it. You just scoop it off. The more vegetables you have that are touching the air, that's when you're going to end up having problems with that, because they combine with the air and it makes that process like facilitate faster. So you just want to make sure. The fermentation process doesn't really stop once it's in the fridge, but it's way slowed down, and it'll go much longer. So pretty much if you've got it to the consistency that you want, then that's when you're going to put it in the fridge, and then you can enjoy it from there. So we'll look at it once I get the jar done. Okay, so I've chopped the whole cabbage up, I've put it in here, I've salted it as I've gone, and I've added my caraway. There's just a little bit of liquid, if you can see that, from the juices, and then I used this with my plastic to really mush it in there, because you really want to get those air bubbles out. And you can keep doing that each day as more liquid kind of comes from the vegetables to go in there. So you want to make sure that you're really mushing it down. So that's that whole, 2-pound cabbage, just really squished down there. I'm going to go ahead and cover it. Oh, I didn't put my glass in there. Glass to help weight it down just a little bit more. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover it. And then over the next few days, like I said, I'm going to keep making sure that I mash down, that there's enough liquid in it, and that it's not exposed to the air, and then let it sit as long as you like it. So you can do a taste test every once in a while. I will probably leave mine for about 7 days. Okay, and then once I got it all packaged up, the water wasn't quite over my vegetables, so I did add a little bit of water at the very least you can. You want to keep breaking down the vegetables until you can really shove them in there and get the liquid as high as you can. Add the very least possible, just to make sure that you don't have air surface above it. And as you can see, it's been pushed down, so that's shifting a little bit, but make sure that you keep pushing that air out each day, but add just a touch, not very much water. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching me. Don't forget I'm available on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So find your favorite platform and you can find me.